Okay, great. Um, all right. Well, thank you for joining. Thank you all. Thank you, panelists and audience, as you come in. We're here to talk about AI and finance in 2025. A few housekeeping items. We will have the panelists on video and unmuted. For those that join, you'll be muted. And if you have any questions, we welcome your questions. So please enter them in the chat and we will do our best to answer them as we go along. The views of the panelists are their own. They don't represent the companies, but we are here to share and learn from each other about AI as it continues to redefine finance. Amanda and I, while based on the West Coast, are actually both here in New York this week and speaking to other customers, clients, financial teams, and it's exciting just to hear about the new opportunities and challenges which are emerging. So in today's session, we'll explore the impact of AI in finance in 2025. We'll discuss new use cases, as well as ways to improve transaction security and fraud detection, and also talk about stabilizing the value of digital assets and stablecoins. So we'll discuss all aspects of AI's role in shaping a resilient and inclusive future. So our expert panelists will share their insights on these issues and discuss strategies. I want to introduce them right now, and they can also provide a brief discussion of their backgrounds and their companies. So Amanda is from RAM, and Monica is from Crypto Connection. So Amanda, Monica, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks for having us, Karen. My name is Amanda Carocchio. I'm on the product partnerships team at Ramp. Before Ramp, I spent time at Square, a data security startup called Very Good Security, and then started my career off at Visa on a bunch of different teams there. I manage a lot of our integration partners here at Ramp. So everything from Microsoft to ERPs. And yeah, excited to get into the discussion today.
Thank you, Karen. And great to be here with you, Amanda. My name is Monica Talan. I am the founder of Crypto Connection, and I focus mostly on education, working with both individuals and then companies to have them manage their journey through both blockchain, crypto, and also AI. We do focus a lot on the AI front. And part of what we're very focused on is ensuring that there is responsible AI, that the data is considering every aspect of a person's individual, that it addresses inclusivity, that it doesn't alienate people. So looking very much at responsible AI as part of our conversation.
Great. And I'm Karen. I am the founder of Blockchain by Women, but I'm also the SVP of Mobile DevOps and Security Solutions at AppDome. AppDome provides mobile app security and fraud prevention for any mobile app. And we have a lot of exciting things that we are seeing and would love to talk to you about it. So let's launch into our first set of questions around the use cases for AI and finance. So Monica and Amanda, what do you see as use cases, or how do you see AI fundamentally transforming financial services?
I can start. So really from where we sit in more of the B2B space, Ramp serves businesses. We don't have any consumer customers. I think automation and efficiency is just like something that we kind of keep seeing and will probably continue to see over the next year or so, and then beyond. But yeah, when you think about things that previously were very manual, so a lot of expense management can be quite manual. We think that you'll continue to see a lot more automation and then hopefully time saved to allow finance teams, people who are in more of a biz ops function, to really spend more time doing strategic work. So I think that's one area, and then maybe one more in our space is analytics. So really, with the power of AI, being able to look at massive data sets and kind of getting insights very quickly. I think that's something that can be really helpful, especially for business customers of ours who are looking at we have this huge amount of data, and just having the horsepower of AI to kind of be able to look at those data sets and glean insights quickly. So those are two that I kind of think about.
And building on that, I think those data sets and really using the data allows you to be to deliver hyper personalization, right? And so I think when you look at the consumer side, where companies can really benefit from it, especially financial companies, is hyper personalizing information. Streamline access to credit and lending. Potentially, if you train the models right, you can take out some elements that may be prejudicial to a specific audience when it comes to credit and lending. And then financial literacy. One of my favorite companies is led by Ramon Ortega. It's called Wealth Built AI, and she focuses a lot, and her company focuses a lot on creating AI agents that help with financial literacy. And so you can interact with Yoli as one example, that's their consumer product, and ask questions on how to manage your finances. And it may actually make it even less intimidating than talking to a person, right? Because you're able to share more with one of these agents. And I think we'll talk probably more about agents in a little bit. But I think giving that access to information and helping people feel more comfortable with these interactions with these bots can also help streamline information. And I love the product. I've used it. It gives you really accurate information based on the on what you share because of how they have trained Yoli.
Yeah, and just to build on top of that, Monica, I was talking to Coinbase about a month ago about their new AI agent project, where they have a new platform that allows developers to create AI-powered crypto agents in less than 3 minutes. And so that's really interesting. But then certain questions come up like, okay, can that AI agent make transactions on behalf of the end user? And how would that work in the security and other implications of that? So a lot of really cool things that are happening. And I spoke to someone from MasterCard last night about how all of these new opportunities and the new work that MasterCard is doing also create challenges, but the challenges in themselves are new opportunities and create new solutions. So it's just a continuing cycle there of opportunity. And so could you elaborate a little bit more on some of the emerging AI applications that you think will have the greatest impact on financial stability in particular? If you have any examples there.
I mean, Karen, this is maybe more your world, but what do you think about like fraud detection, prevention? Not my specialty, but I do think that's an area where AI can be really impactful in terms of stability. If you're having less fraud losses, the ability to detect and sort of like pattern match, again, kind of back to the data piece, like getting a large set of data and then AI being able to quickly analyze like, hey, something looks fishy here. I do think that can have a huge impact on financial stability. Just if you're mitigating fraud, spotting it earlier, and able to reduce it overall, I do think that that could really help in terms of stability, kind of for the ecosystem more broadly. But yeah.
Yes, I totally agree there. It's funny because I just was having a discussion with Amazon about how it's sort of come full circle and the importance of data and security in fraud detection, fraud prevention. And what we've been seeing a lot of is just the rise of different types of signals that are more important now than before. And the industry, like you were saying, right, has been focused on fraud detection, fraud signals from the user. So looking at the user's transactions, identifying patterns, and seeing if there are anomalies. And what we have found at AppDome is if you couple that with the hackers' signals, like the tools that the hackers are using, the methods the hackers are using, you're able to predict oftentimes 6 months in advance the attacks that will happen. And because you have AI, Gen AI tools for hackers like Fraud GPT, this sort of prediction 6 months in advance of attacks is really important. Likewise, I've also seen an increase in the AI-driven attacks. So, for example, I was analyzing our data and looking at over 1 billion user data points and seeing that for certain attacks, such as Face ID bypass using deep fakes. So this is where attackers are using different tools to capture images of people and then replacing their image with the person, the victim. This type of attack is happening at a faster rate. So when you look at all the attacks in the last year, 51%, over half of them happened just in the last 3 months. So there is, use of AI for other things. But the good thing is there are a lot of tools, whether it's Aptome or other tools that Ramp, other companies are providing to mitigate those risks. And so at this point, Amanda and Monica, if you guys could talk about the partnerships and the role that partnerships play in finance, with AI in mind and in light of AI advancements.
Well, I think when you look at, I want to go back to what you talked about earlier with AI agents. I think if you look at, for a long time, somebody said yesterday that you're hearing more about crypto in Silicon Valley because of the AI agents. So I think these partnerships and collaborations between companies and AI and crypto and blockchain are going to grow really fast in the next few months, especially because of the financial aspect of it. And I think you see really cool tools being created. Right now we are in the middle of the meme coin madness, and there's coins. I don't know if you've seen a tool called GMGN, which is gmgn.ai, which allows you to look at data specifically on new tokens being launched, who's launching them, how they're launching them. And that's helping provide a little bit of more informed decision making versus just people kind of jumping in, even though there still are to invest. But you can see the trends. You can really look at data based on how they built the platform. And I think that's one of the exciting parts, being able to use these tools to make more informed decisions at a faster rate, right? So I think that's one area where you're going to see a lot of partnership and collaboration between AI and blockchain. And I think the AI agents, not only are they exciting in that they can trade for you, but now there's AI agents that are trading and that they're communicating with each other. Mm-hmm. So I'm very active in Farcaster, and seeing the communication between the different AI agents is actually fascinating. And so looking at those type of collaborations, I think also is really interesting.
Yeah, I think from where I sit, when you think about like speed to market, partnerships is a really great tool. So AI is still pretty nascent, at least I feel like it is. And so like no one company is going to build everything in-house right now. And so if a partnership can help you get to market faster, in terms of like having AI applications in your company, in your tools, whatever you're building, that's one key way. And then also just having the ability to like use whatever the best in class, if you're thinking about LLMs or sort of the AI infrastructure that you want to build on top of, the like partnerships are a great way to sort of build on top of what is best in class, as opposed to building everything in house, which can slow you down. And then chances are for most companies, most AI tools, you're going to be better off if you're using what is best in class right now. So I think that's another way that I view partnerships in this ecosystem.
Karen, you brought up security, right? I mean, it's important to be partnering with best-in-class security partners because this is moving so quickly. I mean, the example you mentioned is so scary. So ensuring that you find those best-in-class people that are probably they're going to allow you to leapfrog further, especially if you're a startup.
Yes. And so one thing I've been finding is even large organizations are educating themselves, educating others on the role of AI. So in with respect to security in particular. So for example, Amazon has hosted with various groups these capture the flag exercises or events where basically people get together, whether virtually or in person, and they do challenges, solve problems, puzzles, and in so doing, gain points and may win um, in this competition. Now, the important takeaway from the last CTF that Amazon did, or one of the Amazon groups did, is that people wanted to see more AI related challenges. And so I think this is a great opportunity. It's a great partnership between, like you said, Monica, different groups within industry. So an organization like Amazon could ask other people basically to look out for these opportunities, challenges, whatever, learn about it, but also then report back when, because they're informed, report back when they see incidents like this happen. And so I think, like you're saying, just in general, this partnership and this, collaboration that people have with each other helps make the ecosystem safer in general. Not only more efficient, but definitely safer. And so I wanted to just shift gears a bit. Actually, oh, sorry, I did have one more point on the partnership side of things. So one development that I've seen, just to add to this discussion here, is that there are a lot of industry groups that are coming together. There are platforms that people use. So for example, Jack Henry is a platform that many banks and financial institutions, credit unions use. And for them, security is a really big issue. And what was very interesting is they surveyed their customers and their audience and found that while AI was important to their audience, a lot of the organizations weren't as prepared as they wanted to be. So again, a new area of opportunity, but the great thing is, Jack Henry is partnering, like you're saying, Monica and Amanda, partnering with other companies to provide, that security, that detection, and also just in general, the data, going back to what Amanda, you're talking about, the data, the information that's needed. And so, so shifting gears a bit, wanted to talk a bit more about stablecoins and digital assets. So Monica, could you set the stage for us and explain why stablecoins are so exciting this next year?
Yeah, I think I told you, Karen, when we talked that I see 2025 as the year of the stable coin, even though I think 2024 is turning into part, actually, the year of the stable coin when it comes to crypto. It's really the user case that has worked for the industry. And one of the exciting parts of it for me is the cross-border payments. It just makes it safer, faster, and more obviously stable. But you're seeing so many innovative projects. I think not only do you have companies like Circle, I'm a huge fan of USDC, where it's pegged to the dollar, but you're seeing more stable coins being created in different countries pegged to their coin. There's a really exciting project in Mexico and Colombia that I'm following. And I think it gives the ability to provide more stability, to really drive adoption of crypto. When you think about, people don't want to, they want to ensure that when they get paid $1, they actually get paid $1, right? Or whatever the equivalent is. So I think it's a really exciting time because a lot of companies are and countries are adopting it. And I think you're seeing the technology driving adoption across the world, not only in the US. And so that's why I think it's a really exciting time. You have Visa that launched a stablecoin data platform where you can monitor the adoption of stablecoins. You have Hedera that launched a stablecoin studio. So you have a lot of things happening so people can launch their own projects. And think about it, companies can have their own stablecoin to ensure payment and work with the local regulatory arms to do that with local currency.
Yes, and I completely agree there. When I had my own startup and I had contractors, partners around the world, the easiest thing to use was stablecoins to pay them out. And it was faster, cheaper, and just overall a better experience. And it's great to hear that there are more avenues for stablecoins now, especially, for exchanging them. So then to bring it back to AI, do you see AI being used to encourage more mainstream financial players or just other people to adopt stablecoins?
Yes, because you can use the data for monitoring, right? I talked about the Visa project. I think it'll allow you to have more visibility and transparency, which is one of the benefits that stablecoins bring. Also, you could have algorithm stablecoins. I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of those, but you could use AI to launch those. I think that will be an interesting experiment that has already happened, but we can see it again. And then you can look at risk management and other areas and also security. So I think AI can really help further push the adoption of stablecoins globally because you're going to be having access to the data. And I think ultimately we go back to that point, right? You're going to have access to the data. You're going to see how it's being used. You're going to be able to get a lot more information. One of the things that I really like about the Visa project, and I'll send you the link after this, Karen, is that it gave transparency also on how stablecoins are being used, and is the adoption what people saying it is, right? I think there's some points in there that have been debated by several people, but it's driving a conversation that wasn't being had before on that transparency around stablecoin adoption and the use of AI to really look at the data.
Yeah, those are great points. And for our audience, please, if you will have any questions, comments, please send them over in the chat, and we're happy to respond as we go along. And so shifting gears a bit to responsible AI use, which is something, Monica, you mentioned in the beginning here. How do you see AI's role in enhancing financial inclusion and accessibility in underserved communities?
Well, I think one of the first things that we all have to look at is what data are you training your models on? What are you giving it? Because that will ensure that you have responsible AI. I have a good friend that once said, that they were working with a company that wanted to access all information from the internet to train the model. And she said, you're going into dirty water, right? Because there's so much false information. So if you train the model correctly, you ensure that there's no bias, that information is accurate, et cetera, you can actually then have unbiased decision making, for example, for financial inclusion, for loans and other things. So I think there's great potential, but to do it responsibly, one, you have to be sure you have the right data sets. But two, the other point, Karen, that you mentioned, and Amanda, is security, right? Ensuring that you're protecting that information so that you don't have issues for your customers, clients when it comes to finances. And I think the third one is ensuring that people feel comfortable with it, right? Sharing information, et cetera. So I think you have three elements, and the transparency, letting people know that you're using that data to train the models, and ensuring that they understand when you're using AI, for me, is an important part also of responsible AI.
Yeah. And Amanda, sorry, did you have something you wanted to add there?
I was just something that Monica had said earlier around financial inclusion, but this idea that maybe like an AI agent doesn't judge. And I I was talking to someone who's in the health tech space, and they were saying how important that is in terms of something you might be embarrassed to tell a healthcare professional that's a human being in front of you. If you're talking to an agent, maybe you're more willing to share the full picture of what's going on. And I think the same thing does apply to sort of individual finances. And so if maybe it is a professional that you were talking to before, maybe it's a family member that, you're getting financial advice from. It can be embarrassing to talk, kind of like give the full picture. And so I think that's something that I'm excited about on the financial inclusion side in terms of, having an agent that can hopefully get, you're giving it all the data that it needs. But then being just like brutally honest in terms of exactly what's going on. I think the barrier is a lot lower when it is an agent.
And the other part of the unbiased, I'll go back to Coinbase, because I do think they're doing really cool stuff. They're currently doing a hackathon where the judging is being done by AI agents. And so they're hoping that that takes some of the bias away. And it's an experiment. They pulled it together, I think, in like 4 weeks. But I think it's an interesting way to think about taking bias out of decision making.
Yes. And talking about bias, speaking of bias, we have a question from our audience about if coming from a gender and technology specialist who's interested in the intersection of Gen AI and bias. There's a lot of concern about AI systems perpetuating the biases, such as against women and LGBTQ individuals, especially in areas like loan decisions. So, um, could you share other examples of where AI has exhibited similar biases in finance? And, perhaps my question is, how can you mitigate those? And I have some thoughts there too.
I have an example. It's not a financial one, but it's an old example, but I think it's spoke to the challenges that we're going to be faced. And this is an Amazon example when many years ago they trained a model, right, to review resumes. And the person that trained the model didn't include any women colleges in the criteria, and so a lot of women were being left out of the process. Not that all women attended women's colleges, but it did create that bias, and it goes back to the data. You just need to ensure that you're providing data that is accurate to ensure that the model responds correctly. Ultimately, it's driven by the data and that you update it, right? One of the things that ChatGPT OpenAI does is they have groups that test their technology, and they actually pay people from the outside to be constantly testing their model to see what biases and information comes out of it. So I think the more AI companies can do that, the better. And if you're training a model, just ensuring you could constantly update it and that you constantly test it to ensure that biases aren't there.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And so there's a follow-up question on, how do you see these biases evolving in 2025, and what's the current level of awareness and action among US-based companies to address this issue? Do you have a sense of that?
No, look, I think most companies realize that there can be bias depending on how you train it. I do think a lot. I mean, I don't have the number of how many companies are adopting AI, especially on the financial services front. Amanda, you may have more information, but I do think most companies, when they launch a project, they are looking at doing it responsibly. And I think one of the areas that they focus on is ensuring that there's no bias. I think the challenge comes when you use external platforms that you may just rely, and so smaller companies may be relying 100% on Claude or Perplexity or ChatGPT, and if it's not trained with some of your data, it may show a bias that you're not aware of, and that's why having people test it all the time is important, in my view.
Yeah. Yes. And what I've seen to answer this question is that there's been, over the last year, especially, the interest in the intersection of blockchain and AI to mitigate the bias, basically, to make sure that the data is correct, sourced properly, and so forth. And so I've seen more blockchain AI projects come up and be used, right, as a way of verifying that the data used is unbiased. And so to go back a little bit to the stablecoin discussion, we have another question from the audience. In terms, if you have any thoughts on this, diving deeper into how AI could make stablecoin transactions safe. And I can add to this too from a security perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. I think one that I've read about, I haven't seen it, but is using AI in executing smart contracts because it would take away some of the human error on that front. So that's one way that it can make it safer. But Karen, I'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah. So when I looked at the stablecoin transactions, and this is true for any kind of transaction, so not just stablecoins, but say any transaction that is used in a mobile wallet or any wallet, right? It's important to make sure that the wallet itself is tamper-proof, because a lot of times the security issues, the fraud issues happen in between the different technologies that are being used, whether it's a smart contract being used with a digital wallet, or using, for example, a wallet that can be found downloaded on multiple different sites, right? So third-party sites, not Apple or iOS. So the fact that you are executing or doing transactions in a wallet that's not safe is important to look out for. And the good thing is a lot of organizations are talking about it. They're advertising whether or not they have fraud detection and fraud prevention tools. I actually see this more in many of our customers, advertisements direct to their end users. And I was talking to someone, for example, who's using a very big bank's digital wallet, and found that she wasn't able to swap out her mother's account for her account. And she lives here in the US right now, and her mother lives in Singapore. And she thought, wow, that's really interesting. I guess there's good security there. I can't impersonate my mom, even though I want to. And so that's just something to look out for, because whatever kind of transactions you're making, you want to make sure that you're looking out for things like geo-compliance, making sure that you are only able to transact X, Y, and Z in the state, country, part of the world that you're in, because every state, country, part of the world has their own specific regulations and compliance rules that are intended to make you safer as an end user. You want to make sure that your transactions are safe from social engineering. So there's phishing, but there's also vishing and smishing. So people are very creative in using text and also calling you at the same time you're using whatever app to then, take funds from you. So it's important to have those protections in place. And there are a lot of organizations that are looking to use specific technologies like ours to do that. And then in general, protections against bots, so that you are protected against, so organizations are protected against automated attacks. 50% of the financial services companies that I speak to, 50% of their traffic is bot traffic is coming from mobile bots, which is sort of a scary thing. But hackers are creative. They're using AI to create faster exploits. But the good thing is, like I said, there are tools that can mitigate that. And then fraud detection and just the basic security requirements, security protections, like preventing tampering and preventing hackers from coming in and being able to look at the code. So there are a lot of ways to make transactions safer. And the good thing is that the AI, so for example, our company has a AI-based platform that makes these transactions safer. It actually defends the app. So developers don't have to manually code. They basically click a button, call an API, and the AI figures out how to add the libraries in the most optimal way to the mobile app. And there are other technologies that do the same thing for websites and for cloud-based applications. So AI is definitely being used by a lot of, and all security companies that I know of and have spoken to, at least they're looking at it in order to make stablecoin and all transactions safer. And so I think we actually are, that's a great segue into the next set of questions around responsible AI use. And these questions are around, how do we prevent AI from being exploited for fraud or unauthorized transactions? And what kind of steps can companies take to ensure AI solutions are resilient against fraud? So I talked a lot about those just now. one that I briefly spoke about before that has gotten a lot of interest is the use of, say, Face ID bypass using deepfakes. And that's because many organizations have some kind of facial recognition, or they'll use, voice recognition, some kind of biometric, right, to authenticate someone's legitimate use of an app. Now, if you have tools like deep fakes, where, it could be malware that's deployed onto a device like Gold Pickaxe, which gathers the data, gathers the images, and then uses some kind of facial generation tool to create the image, and then is deployed through other tools. There are ways to kind of track and stop each step that the hacker is making, in trying to use AI to commit fraud. So that's a good thing. And then this data that is being collected around these events, going back to Amanda, what you were saying before, this data can then be used in a lot of models, AI models, but also other systems, data lakes, together with other data, and then score, predict, when these security events, when the fraud may occur. So what we're finding is it's important to not only have the AI technology, but also make sure that throughout this advancement that the end user is not lost. I was talking to a UX designer, and how, things may seem like they're just happening for no reason to an end user, and that's extremely frustrating. So it's really important that whenever you do have, say, a security incident, or fear that there is a security or fraud incident, that you communicate really well to the end user what's happening, and make sure the experience is good. And so there are a lot of tools out there that provide notifications, like AppDome, where we provide notifications that can be customized so that the user is aware. And those notifications can be also connected to Gen AI threat resolution solutions and systems, right? So if you have a call center that's getting a lot of questions about the same thing, you can use Gen AI resolution technology to comb through all that and come up with the best response, and help people very quickly. And I know we were talking earlier about agents and things like that. So that's another way of making it easier for people to deal with things that are happening, that are threats. And so just to round out sort of this discussion on AI increasing the attack surface for cyber threats, what are best practices? So I'll just start off with a few, and Amanda and Monica, if you have any others, please chime in. We've seen just AI change the game. Like we talked about before, AI-driven attacks are becoming more sophisticated. And so companies have to keep up with AI agents, which I think is really cool. The challenge is, okay, if they are able to make transactions on your behalf, then the typical liveness and voice recognition checks no longer apply, no longer matter, right? So what we've typically used to authenticate a person, you can't use to authenticate an agent. So how do you authenticate the agent? So what we're finding is, in general, what companies are doing or need to do is to use AI to fight AI that's used in a malicious way, right? So there's always, anytime a new technology emerges, there's always ways that it's being exploited. So how do you mitigate that risk, but ensure that it's still being used in the best possible way? So we are seeing a lot of this come together, the different AI technologies, and the use of automation, like I think, Amanda, you were talking about before, to make sure that this all is working together and not letting fraud through, but still giving the best possible experience to end users. So if you guys have anything to add there, please do. Otherwise, we can go into our last set of questions. Let me just check.
I think Karen, you're definitely closest to us, closest to the to that side of the ecosystem. So yeah, it was actually I love the idea of like fighting AI with AI. Hadn't heard that, so it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should launch a series. But I do, the only other part that I would add is just the importance of continuing to educate people. Look, I think we talk a lot about AI and blockchain and crypto because we're so deep in the space, but a lot of people aren't yet. And I see a lot of people who are still afraid of AI. And so ensuring that people understand how to use it, the data part of it, why it's important to understand it, I think is key as well for the security element. So that's the only thing I would add.
Yes. And there are a lot of security companies out there. And I think someone in our audience commented, having worked in that space, that there's a lot of discussion, there's a lot of work and innovation in this area. So it's a continuing thing that we're always, keeping in step. We're always in step with the next set of changes. And so looking ahead, in 2025, in how AI in finance is being developed, how do you see it adapting to, new global financial challenges and opportunities? How do you see AI in finance remaining relevant in this fast-paced and evolving world?
Well, I'm sure it'll continue to develop in many, like it's already the pace. If I think back, kind of a personal anecdote, but like how much I use AI in my personal life today compared to, last Christmas. I wasn't doing anything, and now it's sort of my first instinct, to sort of, go to ChatGPT, ask a question, or Perplexity, or whatever it is. So I think we'll just like continue to see that just, evolve even faster. Now that I think a lot of people and companies have sort of seen the power behind it. But yeah, I think there needs to be, coming from a partnership seat, there needs to be a lot of collaboration, a lot of sort of mutual understanding on how different companies can work together, how different ecosystems can work together. So I think that is sort of how it can continue to remain relevant, safe, even though it is like fast evolving. And yeah, I think the data piece, I know we've talked about this a lot, but just like the importance of the fidelity of the data that is going into these models is really kind of paramount here.
Yes, I totally agree. AI is the standard now, and everyone is using ChatGPT as a baseline or some tool like that. And people are just becoming more sophisticated, people, developers, everyone. So that's really good to see. And Monica, sorry, I saw you were going to make a point there.
Yeah, just real quick, I was going to build on what Amanda said. Just, I think we do forget that AI is not new, right? I think I read something recently. It's like celebrating 70 years, but access to it for many is so new, right? I mean, if you think about it, it was what, 2 years ago that ChatGPT came to the world, and it's moved so quickly, the adoption and the innovation. But I think that's why it's a little nerve-wracking, like some of the examples you gave, Karen, on how it's being used, because everybody has access to it. Right? It's not something, it's now the genie's out of the bottle, we can't bring it back in. So how do we ensure we continue to lead with integrity, with ethics, with responsible AI, and ensuring that we recognize that there are bad actors, going back to your AI fighting AI. But I think 2025 is going to be another year of fast adoption, fast innovation. I don't think 2 years ago we would have thought about AI agents, even AI agents talking to each other. So what does that mean for 2025? It means that we're going to see even new innovations that are moving pretty quickly and just staying on top of everything. Would love to hear how you guys do it, because it's really hard to stay on top of everything that's coming in the AI and crypto world.
Yes. Yeah, I totally agree. Well, thank you all. And if you, Amanda or Monica, have any parting thoughts, otherwise we'll close out today's session. Thank you all for joining. And we will make this webcast available for viewing afterwards. And as always, if you have any questions, any thoughts on future webcasts and content that you'd like to hear about, please reach out to us or reach out to myself, and we're happy to include that in our next discussion. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.